Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Chinese Premier Li Qiang is going to pay a bilateral visit to Pakistan on 14th of October. This is going to be the first visit by any Chinese premier in last 11 years. Pakistan Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar earlier had said, let me quote him, a series of international visits will prove Islamabad is not isolated at the global stage, unquote. Now, this particular visit by the Chinese Premier to Pakistan comes just before the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's Council of the Heads of the Government that is going to be held in Islamabad on 15th and 16th of October. Earlier, for a fact, we know that Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif had a 5-day official visit to China back in June, and there was a signing of the agreements and MOUs which happened to be 23 in number. Also, both the sides at that particular moment committed to forging upgraded version of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and the second phase of the CPEC that has been termed as CPEC 2.0. Also, in the joint statement, when we specifically talk about those 23 agreements and memoranda of understanding between Pakistan and China, the sectors in which they were signed include agriculture, infrastructure, industrial cooperation, intergovernment development assistance, market regulation, surveying and mapping, media and film. In today's program, we are going to talk about the significance of the timing of this particular bilateral visit by the Chinese Premier to Pakistan just ahead of that Council of the Heads of the Government of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is, of course, is going to be held here in Pakistan. The recent high-level engagements and understandings between Pakistan and China and what sort of an impact they've had on the overall trajectory of Pakistan-China relationship. Also, the progress on and the potential which is related to China-Pakistan economic corridor, especially when it enters into the second phase, expanded into other sectors as well after development in energy and infrastructure in the phase 1. We are also going to delve deeper when it comes to Pakistan and China's collaboration within the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's framework. Also, Pakistan-China collaboration when it comes to ensuring regional peace and security vis-a-vis Afghanistan. All these important matters up for discussion in today's show. For that, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Dr. Rahman, Executive Director at Pakistan-China Council on China. Dr. Rahman, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Let's begin with this particular visit's timing and its significance. On 14th of October, Chinese Premier is visiting Pakistan. This bilateral visit on 15th and 16th, we are going to have that high-level mood of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. How do you look at that?
Well, definitely, it's one of the very important visits, which is taking place at a very, important moment, in the sense that Pakistan at this point in time has been very forthcoming in terms of inviting investment, in terms of engaging with other countries, with major powers. So I think that the timing is very suitable in terms of Pakistan's engagement with the rest of the world. And at the same time, this visit is taking place after a while, after about 11 years. So from that point of view also, it will give an opportunity to Pakistani side and to the Chinese side to have this kind of a high profile engagement and interaction. Although interaction has been taking place, while our premier and our other dignitaries have been visiting China, but from the Chinese side, it's a very special occasion and a very symbolic, importance is attached to this kind of a visit. So I think that sort of back to back with the SCO summit, it is going to be sort of one of the important events, because the SCO summit is on the rotation basis. So maybe next time we will have this opportunity after 10 years, or depending on the number of new members added to the SCO.
Of course.
So, yeah, it's going to be, I think, sort of a very important at this point in time, when there so many things are really moving forward, and then there is kind of an optimism in terms of foreign investments coming to Pakistan, in terms of economic, the situation of economy is improving, significantly.
Also, Pakistan looking forward to have that foreign direct investment ultimately leading to enhancement in exports towards the outer world. We are honored to be joined by another participant in the show on Skype, Dr. Hassan Daud, but former project director and coordinator of the CPEC projects. Dr. Hassan, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight to discuss this very important topic of Pak-China relations, especially when this upcoming visit of the Chinese Premier after 11 years to Pakistan. What does that basically signify when we talk, keeping in view that right after that on 15th and 16th, we are going to have that high-level mood of the Council of Heads of Government of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization here in Pakistan's federal capital, Islamabad?
Thank you very much. And I think this is one of the most important visits that have taken place in the past 1 decade, I would say. And not just the visit of the Prime Minister, I think the following SCO conference is equally important, and the agenda that been set for the meeting and the discussion that should be held during this great event. I think Pakistan will be the center point, and Pakistan needs this kind of, besides FDI that you've just mentioned. I think Pakistan wants to leverage its geography, its position in the Muslim world, but overall in the region also. Because we must understand that we live in a region which is not just interconnected, it's also interdependent. And based on that, I think how we look at these multilateral forums and how we look at visit of uh, the premier of China is very, very important, and our preparations in this regard are very important. For SCO and also for rest of the important activities that are happening in Asia and beyond. Not just in terms of economics, but also in terms of geopolitics. I think China has the center stage. So in terms of economics, China remains the factory of the world, and in terms of geopolitics, China is the center of gravity, and everything is now pulling towards China. So for that, we are very lucky because we have great relationship, time-tested relationship with China. I think some of the recent incident in terms of security that I mentioned have actually it also signifies the fact that how worried our enemy is, and how soon he wants to jeopardize this relationship. But I think the strength and the overall volume of this relationship so big and so large. I think nothing can happen. Pakistan should remain committed to this relationship. Pakistan should leverage from this visit that is happening after so many years. And in the morning, I was just reading the script of President Xi's address to the parliament, where he highlighted about shared prosperity and future. I think Pakistan and China have shared future. Our destiny is shared, and I think our economy are interlinked.
Right, Doctor. But when we talk about the last time any Chinese premier visited Pakistan back in 2013, Premier Li Keqiang, and up till now, where do you look the trajectory between Pakistan and China had been, especially when we take a broader look in the light of the progress that has happened under the China-Pakistan economic corridor?
I think this past 1 decade has been very, very significant in terms of not just this relationship, but also for Pakistan to actually highlight its importance. We have showcased to the world that if there's commitment and there's whole approach, we can attract investment in a very short span time. I think in 3 years we were able to attract around 22 billion US dollars in coming from China, and multi-dimensional, sectoral. So in that respect, also Pakistan was benefited from this relation, but also on the convergence part, on the politics that is happening, the regional and beyond, for us to get the benefits of SEO, for us to now look at BRICS for our economic strengthening. I think Pakistan has really benefited, and also China has also helped us in several challenging time, including the recent IMF, and our Prime Minister has also acknowledged the effort of China for getting us this package from the Monetary Fund. and also beyond. Now, even when we are looking at these large projects like ML1, and in the past we worked on Gawad. I would also be looking at some of the activities that would happen during his visit, including the handing over of the Gwadar airport to Pakistan. That would be a significant milestone, and for your viewers, they should realize that this is the largest socio-economic grant project of China in any part of the world. So this is how important it is. This is how we should carefully plan and execute this visit.
Right, Dr. But I'll come back to you. Please stay with us on the phone line. We are honored to be joined by Mr. Masood Khalid, former ambassador of Pakistan to China. Mr. Ambassador Khalid, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Before I go in further discussion with you regarding the significance of this upcoming visit by Chinese Premier to Pakistan, I just want you to shed a bit of light regarding as to the trajectory of Pakistan-China relationship, that as it has evolved over the years, especially under the China-Pakistan economic corridor, and the kind of strength it had been getting with every single passing day.
Well,
Unfortunately, we've lost the connection with Mr. Masood Khalid. We will try to reconnect with him. Dr. Fazal Rahman. And now, there was a very significant point that was highlighted by Dr. Butt regarding the kind of incidents that have recently happened here, which actually targeted the Chinese, and the kind of prompt response Pakistani authorities came up with. And that also shows that how the enemies of these development projects are worried about these, and that they're trying to bring in their nefarious designs in order to sabotage this. But the kind of strength this particular bilateral relationship between China and Pakistan has got, it supersedes all those particular nefarious designs. Your take regarding that?
Well, definitely, there is this relationship is a very resilient relationship, and it has stood the test of time in terms of these terrorist attacks. And in the past, we can see that, from 2004 onwards, there is a very specific pattern to all these attacks. Whenever there is a high-level visit from Pakistani side to China, or from Chinese side to Pakistan, these kind of things do happen. And certainly it's being sponsored, and it basically tries to steal the highlight of that visit. So it's so not going to happen. Definitely, Pakistani and Chinese side, they do understand that there is kind of an external involvement in all these kind of activities, which are trying to sabotage, which are trying to undermine the strength of Pakistan-China relations. And the Chinese leadership is very clear on that, despite all these difficulties, they are going to go ahead, they are going to move ahead in terms of implementation of our plans, in terms of implementation of CPEC. But at the same time, I think we need to be more, sensitive about happening of these incidents.
A very important point that you have made regarding the external involvement in these particular sabotage incidents that are actually aimed at sabotaging this particular very visionary project of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, under that very visionary project of Belt and Road Initiative by President Xi Jinping. I'll come back to you, because there are related aspects to this particular external involvement, to take your deeper understanding regarding that. Also, we are once again joined by Mr. Masood Khalid, former ambassador to China or Pakistan. Mr. Khalid, thank you very much for your time. Now, when we talk about this time-tested friendship between Pakistan and China, higher than Himalayas, deeper than the oceans, sweeter than honey, what had been the cornerstone of this particular very strong bilateral relationship between Pakistan and China over the years, which has stood the test of time, as well as in the light of this particular upcoming visit by the Chinese Premier Li Qiang to Pakistan?
No, thank you very much. I'm really sorry we got disconnected. Well, Pakistan-China relationship is more than 70 years old. And it is not a new relationship. It did not start with BRI or CPEC. It has a very rich history. And of course, both countries have proved that this relationship, they stand by each other, that this relationship is time-tested. It can weather all storms. So that is how, over the past 70 years, we have been able to develop and build this trust and level of confidence in each other. And secondly, I think that Pakistan and China both understand and recognize that there are forces, there are elements, there are external powers which are not comfortable with this relationship, especially given the recent developments in geopolitical, landscape. Given the contest between the United States and China, given the contest, competition, or a tiff tensions between India and China, so the game has really changed in the last few years. So, but both countries acknowledge and realize that there are forces which want to undermine this relationship. And I would like to draw your attention to the statement which was issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, I think yesterday, after or day before, after this, heinous act in Karachi in which two Chinese were killed. It clearly stated that this kind of activity, this kind of terrorism will not be able to undermine the trust and cooperation which exists between Pakistan and China. So this was a very strong message from China that to those forces, and they said that they will be disappointed. So the point is that there is a convergence, that this relationship is bound to grow, is bound to flourish. It has flourished in the last 70 years despite ups and downs, despite domestic and international changes. So now it is a rock solid relationship. But there are forces, there are elements which want to sabotage it, which want to undermine it, but they will not succeed. Now, coming to...
Now, Mr. Khalid, now this particular, where do you identify those forces which are trying to undermine this very strong partnership and the relationship between Pakistan and China that has stood the test of time, of course, stands now as we speak as rock solid?
So I'm not going to name and shame any particular entity or any particular country, but we can, we can see through the game. We can see through the game because we know who the detractors are, who our adversaries are. And I would like to point out that we have shared credible evidence with the international community of India's involvement in subversion in Balochistan. So, of course, it is for the intelligence agencies and security setup of Pakistan to, to investigate and dig out. But TTP is also involved. Afghan territory, we know that. It's not only Pakistan's concern. If you see the statement which was issued recently by the foreign ministers of, China, Russia, Pakistan, and Iran, it clearly mentioned they share our concern that Afghanistan territory is being used by, terrorist outfits to create trouble in the region, including in Pakistan, through TTP and other proxies. So we can, we can weave a thread and we can see which could be the forces which are being sponsored, these proxies which are creating this problem. But of course, if CPEC succeeds, their designs will fail. So this is very clear. Now, coming to the Chinese previous visit, of course, this visit is taking place after a very long time. It is overdue in the sense that this visit by Chinese premier was to take place, but it got stalled due to the COVID 2-3 years ago. But now the visit is taking place, and of course, he's coming for a bilateral component as well as a multilateral event, which is SCO conference. So on 14th, I think there is a bilateral visit. There will be a comprehensive review of the overall bilateral cooperation. Of course, we will also talk about our joint counterterrorism efforts in the wake of this rise in terrorist acts against the Chinese. We share Chinese concerns, and we are cognizant that we need to take whatever steps are necessary, which are being taken actually to ensure the protection of Chinese assets and persons there. But at the same time, I would like to emphasize that if there are any gaps or loopholes in the system, then we ought to have a closer look at them. But I'm sure that this
we ought to have a closer look indeed for that on that particular front. Mr. Masood Khalid, you already talked about those forces which are trying to undermine this particular partnership between Pakistan and China. Of course, India's involvement in Balochistan, we have seen that classical case of Kulbhushan Yadav confessing to those sabotage and espionage activities, specifically to focus on China-Pakistan economic corridor. Afghan territory has been used against Pakistan with banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan Fitna al-Khawarij base there, having safe havens over there. Since 2021, Pakistan sharing with the international community that particular evidence. Also, at the SCO forum, how do you think Pakistan and China can collaborate in order to address this particular issue of transnational terrorism?
Well, trans-regional and transnational terrorism is a source of concern for all, including Pakistan and China, and all countries of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. You know, they cooperate and they coordinate through the anti-terrorist mechanism which exists within SCO. So that cooperation is ongoing, and I'm sure that Pakistan and China bilaterally will also consult each other, will talk to each other, and try to create, a synergy of thought in dealing with this problem of terrorism, because this is a common concern of Central Asian republics, of Iran, of China, Pakistan, Russia. So this is a common concern. So I'm sure.
What about India, Mr. Khalid? When you talk about India, it also happens to be the member of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We have also seen India always trying to play a victim card, trying to point fingers towards Pakistan without any concrete evidence. And whenever any incident happens over there, it without any hesitation tries to point the fingers towards Pakistan without evidence. And Pakistani authorities have always been asking that if there is an actionable evidence present, Pakistan would definitely take measures in that regard. But India has always failed to do that. Rather, we have seen India's state sponsorship of terrorism transnationally, not only here in Pakistan, but also in the Western countries, most recently in the US, as well as in Canada. How can India be impressed upon on this particular forum? Is there any mechanism for that?
Well, I agree with you that India has been, scapegoating Pakistan and blaming Pakistan without any credible evidence. On the other hand, we have presented credible evidence to the international community of India's involvement. But at the same time, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that SCO deliberations normally do not raise bilateral issues. This is established practice, and I think both the countries, all member states try to do that. But on the margins, like what happened in Goa, there was acrimony. But I would seek some solace from from the statement of Mr. Jaishankar, that he says that, he knows he's a civil person and he's courteous, so he will remain civil during the SCO conference in Pakistan. So I hold him to his, word. And I hope that there'll be no acrimony during the conference and things will be smooth. Pakistan does not want any bitterness created during this conference, because these are bilateral things, and we have offered dialogue to India to resolve our issues, and I think that's a very rational and a very sane approach by Pakistan. And if that happens, that would be a good development for peace and stability of South Asia. So I would say that all in all, we are ready for this hosting and welcoming our honored guests. in Pakistan. And Pakistan has a rich tradition of hospitality, and we are gracious hosts. So I'm sure that our guests will find that, sentiment in our hospitality in Pakistan.
Mr. Khalid, one last question, a quicker response from you on this particular thing. When we talk about Pakistan and China together, their collaboration under the SCO framework, how will it make Pakistan position more effective within the SCO, and to what effect?
On what issue?
Overall, when we talk about the SCO, when it comes to regional integration, anti-terrorism efforts, regional collaboration, and regional economic integration and connectivity?
We, Pakistan and China, coordinate very closely generally at multilateral forums, and I'm sure that coordination will continue. But we should also keep in mind that this forum primarily addresses economic, connectivity, trade, organizational and budget issues of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. I am sure that the joint statement, which will be issued later on, will have some references to security-related issues like counterterrorism, and maybe a reference to Middle Eastern situation. But the primary focus, the main focus of this conference is on, economic connectivity and projects, and the budget of the organization. These are the issues which will receive the attention of the prime ministers who will be attending. But I'm sure that whatever is the outcome, it will be satisfactory from Pakistan's point of view, because Pakistan is the host, and all the countries, there is a tradition that all the countries who attend normally, defer to the sensitivities of the host country. So that we should bear in mind.
Mr. Masood Khalid, former ambassador of Pakistan to China, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Dr. Rahman, now that particular aspect, now this relationship being resilient over the years, as you already mentioned, then external involvement. What do you think, how China and Pakistan within the SCO framework can impress upon the de facto authorities in Afghanistan that they've got the international obligation, but their soil is being consistently being used by the terrorist groups, which pose a threat to the regional countries, particularly the neighbors?
I think that there is already a consensus between Pakistan, China, countries like Russia, Tajikistan, which are the members of SCO, and especially with reference to the Moscow format, there is a consensus, and perhaps that consensus can be carried forward in SCO conference, that there is a need definitely to stabilize Afghanistan and to put certain kind of pressure on Afghanistan to address all these issues which are challenging the regional stability, which are challenging the prospects of economic connectivity, which are challenging the prospects of economic integration in the region, which is a primary focus of the SCO.
So is there any mechanism within the SCO framework to impress upon Afghanistan's de facto authorities when it is not a full member, rather an observer state?
Well, there is a mechanism that there are a regional anti-terrorism structure, which is an institution in itself, and it is one of the important institutions of SCO, where all these security-related matters are discussed, and at the same time intelligence is shared regarding and evidence is provided regarding sort of what is happening in the SCO space in terms of terrorism specifically. So I think that taking lead from that institution, one can certainly impress upon any country sort of which is indulging into these kind of activities. And perhaps I think it's not only the SCO, but now if you look at the United Nations, some of the reports which their special committees have formed, in which very categorically they have sort of placed the onus of responsibility on Afghan government, that they are not taking appropriate measures and allowing it to happen, which is causing greater instability in the region.
Right, let me proceed once again towards Dr. But now, when we talk about the last time visit of Premier Li Keqiang to Pakistan, he emphasized about the cooperation on power generation between Pakistan and China. We have seen there has been a lot of progress in the first phase of China-Pakistan economic corridor when it comes to alleviating Pakistan's energy crisis as well as the development of infrastructure projects. What had been the major progress if we try to take a stock take of the progress over the last 1 decade of CPEC? And where do you see that particular progress leading into in the second phase?
Yeah, thank you very much. There have been several great milestones that we have achieved, starting from Gwadar, and now the Gwadar airport will also be handed over. Improving the effectiveness and connectivity of Gwadar. Also, on the highway part, about 850 kilometers of highway have been constructed. We have created rural-urban synergy through that and connecting Islamabad to DI Khan and several other highway initiatives that have been taken. On the softer part, we have the optical fiber connectivity connecting from the Chinese border to Rawalpindi and now moving southwards towards Karachi. We have energy, and now almost by next year, one of the great project that will be commissioned during this visit and COD for which has been announced is the Suki Kanari project, which is investment from Chinese side. So overall, about 6,000 megawatt of energy has been added to the national grid. We have a transmission line of about 585 kilometers. So a lot has been happening, but more importantly, it has created a positive narrative about Pakistan that we are a country which can embrace investment, which can create the enabling environment for investment in a very shorter time, and also created a narrative that Pakistan and China can work for regional connectivity and perhaps also address some of the issues that you mentioned earlier with Investor Saab when you were highlighting Afghanistan. I think in the forthcoming SCO and even during discussions with the Chinese premier, the Afghans' issues and some challenges around Afghanistan would also be highlighted because essentially SCO and of course CPEC and BRI are regional connectivity initiatives. So you can't just have one country spoiling the entire spectrum of the cooperation that we have. I also would like to highlight one important fact that the way that China is growing and the regional economies are growing, I think Pakistan cannot become an island state. We have to connect with these and as per some of the Western experts, I think by 2050 China will be number one economy of the world, and India would also be at a very important position, and likewise Russia and the Central Asian countries. So this economic bloc followed by the political and security cooperation, humanitarian aspect of it. Perhaps all of it is so important and so vital. And for me, I think as a scholar of Pakistan-China friendship and as a practitioner of projects which are done at CPEC, I think there cannot be more important week or 7 days that have actually happened in Pakistan's history in the past 1 decade. This is extremely vital, and I think all of us and all elements and pillar of Pakistan should be extremely careful, not just in terms of what is happening on the political front, but also what is going to happen in the multilateralism aspect of SCO. So this is extremely vital, and I'm glad that we are discussing it today.
Right, I'll come back to you, Doctor. But Dr. Fazal Rahman, now Pakistan-China alignment, SU happening on 15th and 16th of October, 14th October, this bilateral engagement between Pakistan and China on the top level happens. Now, as far as geopolitics is concerned, the Western view of China and the policy of the US in particular, when you talk about its containment policy towards China, in that particular view, this particular engagement, just prior to that multilateral mood, a high-level mood, this bilateral engagement between Pakistan and China, that alignment, what sort of a message does it send globally?
Well, definitely, I think that Pakistan, China, focusing, calibrating their regional perspective, their overall approach towards regional issues, and then reflecting those calibrated, decisions into SCO summit. So I think there is a deeper connectivity, and it will send a strong message, to the rest of the world that Pakistan-China alignment in terms of regional geopolitics, in terms of regional connectivity is very important. And at the same time, I think, now in larger global perspective, you can see that SCO and BRICS are going to play a very important role in terms of reshaping the new world order, new world economic order specifically. So this whole region, which is contributing a large portion of global GDP, is going to come up in kind of an integrated form, and it's going to really deliver in terms of the developing South. And this process is going to have huge impact as far as the overall economic growth of the region or Asia is concerned. And I think that the opponent forces are certainly going to create certain hurdles, certain problems, trying to undermine, trying to sabotage, trying to create further cleavages and differences amongst the members of the SCO. Already there are some conflicts, there are some issues among the members, but I think with the passage of time, those needs to also be resolved. And I think SCO should also be upgrading its internal structure, where serious issues which are creating kind of impediments in the long run prospects of SCO should be addressed and should be resolved.
Okay, so there was a point that was made by Mr. Ambassador Masood Khalid. There was an acrimony that was witnessed last year on the part of Indians when that particular high-level mood happened in Goa. Now, he also expects this time around, when the External Affairs Minister of India comes to Pakistan, it's not going to be that very particular case. Now, when it comes to more regional integration, the effective functioning of SCO, as you have already mentioned, that it needs to improve its structure from within also in order to meet the current, the modern demands of the region also. Looking at specifically the role of India as a member in this particular regional forum, how do you think the other members work to make it more effective? Could there be a negative impact if there is acrimony continuously seen on the part of Indians, and how to address that particular thing within the framework?
Well, certainly, we notice that, India is not paying due importance to SCO as an organization, and has been trying to, because of the bilateral relation with Pakistan and with China, they are trying to sort of manage the effectiveness of SCO at a certain level, not really allowing a greater integration and a greater cooperation amongst the member states. So perhaps there you also have to see that India belongs now to kind of a Western bloc, which is led by the Americans, especially in terms of Quad, in terms of other agreements that they have signed with them. So there is kind of a crisscross and clash of interest as far as the multilateralism is concerned. So India is having a very peculiar position in SCO, and I think India should also realize that they are member of the BRICS, and in that they are playing an important role. So I think that should also be the same kind of spirit should also be reflected in SCO.
Right, Dr. But now let's talk about the expansion of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. After that progress, those dividends garnered through the phase 1 of the CPEC, the expansion into multiple sectors, for example, in agriculture, mining, and certain other sectors, also including information technology. When we talk about the second phase, or the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor 2.0, what are the prospects? What could be achieved in the immediate terms with this particular expansion in multi-sectors?
I think we should look at it in a more broader sense, in a way that we should just look at the short-term dividends. And I think in that aspect, the GDI of China, the Global Development Initiative of China, is extremely important, because they're now looking at energy transition. Pakistan is also looking at sources to support its energy transition towards more renewable, and it's very important because of the climate change challenges that not just the region has, but also I think globally the challenges are. So therefore, this is in short term, I think the agriculture, because of the food security, I think one of the lessons that we accrued from COVID-19 was that every country has to ensure its security, not just in terms of energy supplies, but also in terms of the food supply. So, therefore, food security and agriculture, energy, renewable, and transition. And I think more importantly, we should also talk about the special economic zones and some of the Chinese businesses moving towards Pakistan, because Pakistan provides them great opportunity, not just as a consumer market, but also people here, their understanding of technology, their understanding of some of the cross-cultural dimensions like speaking English. These are some of the aspects that any investors would like to have. All we have to do is create that enabling environment for this all to happen, and the promises that are around CPEC. I think the past 10 years have demonstrated that we can achieve whatever we like just through convergence. And one thing that I won't say it unites the nation, but one thing that there is consensus amongst all segments of the society is China-Pakistan economic corridor, like our nuclear program. So I think we must benefit from this. We should look at projects that can create more urban-rural synergy. Our economy is passing through challenging time. And I think the one of the stimulus that can support us is China-Pakistan economic. So besides these 3 points, I think we should also enhance, and I hope that that's part of the agenda and discussion with the Premier would be the science and technology aspect, and also the people to people connectivity, the academia linkages associated to that. So if we can, these elements, they do not look as grandiose as mega projects like infrastructure and energy. But I think this transition Pakistan has to make. We have to improve our capacity in terms of embracing this investment, and also the academia aspect, because we have to learn a lot from the way that China is building its higher education and also its TVET sector. Our TVET sector is quite weak, and we can learn a lot. And I think we should immediately ask China for help in that.
Business to business contacts. You already talked about people to people contacts. So we saw that 100 leading Pakistani businessmen accompanied Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif during his visit to China in June. How do you look that could be improved, that business to business contact? Also, what sort of sectors might actually attract the Chinese investors to bring in their investment here in Pakistan, especially under the CPEC Phase 2?
I think as far as the government is concerned and the Prime Minister's initiative is concerned, I think there's never a week where he doesn't take a meeting or a stock of how the Chinese investment and how the CPEC projects are flowing. So that's great about how we're looking at China and our business to business stage, which is happening soon. But on the overall aspect of it, I think we are creating SIFC. Is also creating that synergy through which, and I recently there was a series of large scale Chinese enterprises visiting Pakistan and interacting with us. So I think SIFC is showing that whole of government approach, also creating that pull factor for that investment to come to Pakistan. What I would like to highlight through your program is that I think more because investment is also a post 18th Amendment investment is a provincial subject also. I think there we need to build our capacity, especially on the public-private partnership platform, because the government, as we just spoke about the economic issues, I think the government needs more public-private partnership projects. And for that again to happen, we need to build our capacity on the provincial front. Lastly, one more aspect that we should be able to leverage is, I think, revisit the FTA, the free trade agreement with China. There are a lot of opportunities. We do not look at them, especially on the agri food part, the livestock part. We have huge endowment in that. And I think Pakistan should explore more for benefiting from the tax holidays that we have. Again, China would like to come and invest in Pakistan. They've stated this, their businesses have stated this. I've seen them traveling to Pakistan back and forth. what we have to do is that provide them the understanding of our, regulations and fundamental laws around investment, because this language barrier and some of the cultural issues, government to government engagement is easier. There are a lot of supporting and enabling factors that helps them. But on the business to business part, I think role of SIFC, role of BOI, both federal and provincial, and role of, I think, the Prime Minister's office and the Chief Minister, respective Chief Minister office, will be very, very important. But on top of it, the role of the security agencies is extremely vital. This phase, maybe this year, is very important, because we are improving our economy. The naysayers will do their and play their part, and I think in order to counter them, we have to create the overall umbrella where, the investors get the shelter, both in terms of their physical security and also the financial security.
Your point is well taken. Last quick comment, Dr. Fazal Rahman, regarding as to what impact are you foreseeing of this bilateral visit by the Chinese Premier on the overall, already very rock-solid relationship between Pakistan and China?
I think this visit is going to give us a roadmap for the second phase of CPEC. And most of the areas which will come under discussion and decisions will be taken are going to be, like, in the medium term, they are going to be implemented. And certainly there is going to be the new areas. I have heard that there is going to be a currency swap agreement. We have had this one in 2011 also, but again this time. So it is going to be one of the highlights of the visit, and it's going to play a very important and crucial role in terms of bilateral trade.
Dr. Fazal Rahman, Executive Director at Pakistan Council in China, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. On Sky, we were joined by Dr. Hassan Daud, former Project Director, Coordinator, CPEC Projects. Dr. Hassan Daud, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.